I'm Michelle, and we're going to talk about how I and you can use mindfulness, compassion, and connection to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. Hi, I'm Michelle, and we're going to be talking about smoothing out our mornings. And this is our back to school series. I help parents who want to parent peacefully, to foster deep and strong relationships with their children, and at times find it really hard. When my kids were small, I found myself so overwhelmed and burnt out that not only did I struggle with responding peacefully and playfully, I got caught in an awful yelling pattern. And it was followed by overwhelming shame because yelling was the last thing that I wanted to do. So let's talk about how I and you can use the science of mindfulness and self compassion to find your inner calm and a little more sanity in your parenting. And before we get started with today's show, I just wanted to let you know that the registration is open this week only for the Yelling to Connecting Fall group. So if you haven't joined us already, we would love to have you in the fall group. The welcome call is the first week of September. You can find all the details on my website. So, smoothing out our mornings with play. I love using play as a tool in parenting. It is invaluable. And I've not always been, and maybe am not still, a playful person. Like, play doesn't come easy for me. I don't feel playful all the time. And I don't feel even lighthearted enough to be playful or creative with my play. And it doesn't matter. Play is like a muscle, and anything else, if we practice, we can get better at it. So if you're thinking, I hate being playful, I hate play, I don't know what to play, I don't like being playful, all of these things, perfectly understandable and reasonable. And it doesn't mean that we can't try. So I'm going to give you lots of ideas, and ideally, it would just spark your own ideas for your own kiddos and your own family and your own personality that work best for you. So take what you like and leave the rest, and have it spark your own awesome ideas. And if you have awesome ideas, please share them in the comments, because then other parents can hear them as well. So let's go get started. So first, I like to start by waking up with playfulness. And you can, one great way is stuffies. So lots of times our kids have stuffies all around them. So you might wake them up with their stuffy, and the little stuffy wants to come up next to them and snuggle and say, "Good morning. How are you this morning?" Or maybe they want to fight over who goes to school with your kiddo, and one of them is going to go to school, and then one of them says no, and one of them tries to hide in the pocket or under the covers. So there's all different kinds of silly ways that you can use that play to help, even at the very first moment your kiddo wakes up. If your kiddo's a little bit older and maybe they're not into stuffies so much, maybe it's being silly. Maybe you come in and you rap "good morning," which would get a great big eye roll, I'm sure, which is ideal, right, for our teens, laughing at us being ridiculous parents, rolling their eyes at us. Maybe you sing if you're like me, what would be a terrible off-key song, and I'm sure they would again roll their eyes and maybe slightly, like a tiny little slight smile on the corner of their mouth. So again, I'm not so creative when it comes to this, but what makes your kiddo smile? What makes them laugh? And think about, is there anything I could do that I could wake them up with in a silly way? Do you have to do this every morning? No. Do you have to do any of this ever? Of course not. Again, I'm just giving you ideas, particularly at the start of school. Maybe it's not something you keep up with the whole year and not something you need or want to keep up with, but It's a great way to smooth out the transition of the start to school. So let's see. Maybe you, now we're getting dressed. So when it's time to get dressed, maybe you put on one of their shirts, and you try to get dressed. You try to put on one of their shirts, and depending on the age of your kids, they're going to think that is so silly and hilarious. Maybe you try to, you put their shorts on your head, and you're like, is this where your shorts go? Where do your shorts go? I don't know. How do you put your shorts on? Maybe you try to put their shorts on and they're teeny tiny and they only go up, halfway up your leg. These are all silly ways to be silly with your kiddo, to bring some lightness to your mornings, lightness to their day. It kind of it takes us out of stress mode and like have to do mode and like being in this kind of like rigidity to flexibility and ease. That's kind of what play can do for our kiddos in our mornings. Maybe you do something similar with the toothbrush. Like you put the toothbrush here and you're like, oh, do you like my mustache? I just grew it last night. Or do you say, oh, is this where you're supposed to brush? And you're brushing their nose. Is this where you're supposed to brush? Is this where you're supposed to brush? And you're brushing all around in all these silly places. Are these your teeth? Is this where your teeth are? You're just being silly about this teeth brushing thing, about these things that oftentimes our kids don't want to do. They're tired. It's kind of like pulling teeth, right, to get our kids to do these things in the morning, and play just smooths it out a little bit. Next, getting out the door with play. So, and maybe even breakfast. Maybe, the plates fight over which plate gets to be used, or which pancake gets to be eaten by your kiddo, or anything that you can think of to be silly. Maybe you put on silly music and you listen to silly music while your kids are eating breakfast. Maybe you dance a little bit with them in the kitchen and you give them a little spin while they're on their way to the refrigerator or what have you. So again, where can you build in a little silliness and play? Now you're getting out the door. Ooh, gosh, another tricky place. Like we said in the last podcast, we baked in 10 minutes. So now your 10-minute timer has gone off, where you're going to have 10 minutes to get out the door, to get shoes on, get backpacks, blah, blah, blah. And the silliness is still there with you. So maybe they don't want to put on their shoes. Maybe they don't want to put on their socks. Maybe their sock feels really weird and they take it off and throw it. Oh boy. So now we're getting into the thick of it, right? So maybe the socks, all of a sudden it becomes a sock snowball fight, and you start tossing socks and they toss some at you. Maybe you play a fun game of chase where their shoes chase them around the kitchen, trying to get on their feet because they want to go to school and they want to play on the playground. And if you are thinking, oh my gosh, this sounds hard. Oh my gosh, this sounds frustrating. I just want my kids to get their shoes on and get out the door. Of course, you are normal. That is reasonable. And I just want to offer you some ideas that if it feels accessible, you might be able to incorporate them. I'm trying to think of maybe you pretend there's a mouse in their backpack and the mouse is going to go with them. Another fun, like separating and rejoining game especially with little kids, but you can try this with a little bit older kids too, like in the 10, 11 range, and depending on your kiddo, maybe even older. But you count all the hairs on their heads, all the hairs on their eyebrows, do they have two eyes? Do they have two ears? Count their nose, their chin, count all these different parts of their body. And then you say, you better have all those things when I come back. I'm going to count every hair on your head. And again, you're saying it in a silly, lighthearted way. They can hear in your voice, they're hearing calm, they're hearing lightheartedness. These things help kids feel safe. They help kids feel connected to you. So it makes it just a little easier to get through those difficult transitions. And then when you pick them up, or when they come back to you, or you come back to them after a day of being apart, count all their hairs. Are they all there? Count their ears, count their nose, count all these parts. Are they all there? It's just such a fun way to connect. And I believe that I got that idea from hand in hand parenting. And I love it. It's such a fun idea. I've used it lots of times. And let's see. Yeah, if you are like, I don't know, thinking about this and you're like, I don't know, you can Google ideas, you can brainstorm ideas. Sometimes it's hard for us to remember any of this, so you might want to write it down somewhere so you can remember to try out some of these playful ideas. Maybe you try out one a day, maybe you try out one during each part of the morning, whatever feels accessible to you. And if you are like, Michelle, that all sounds well and good, but I am too stressed, too tired, and too overwhelmed to do any of that, I hear you. That is very normal and reasonable. Unfortunately, we are often overstressed and overwhelmed as parents and stretched too thin. Like we have too much to do. There's only one of us. We don't have our village. That's not our fault. So, yeah, if it doesn't feel accessible, just give yourself grace and know that you're not alone. You're definitely not the only one who wants to play, likes the idea, but can't find the space, the time, the energy, what have you, to do those playful ideas. You are really, really not alone. I've had to work really hard to incorporate play, and sometimes it's not there at all. And when it's there, great. One thing that can be helpful if you feel that real deep sense of overwhelm is talking to someone. Like it could be a friend, it could be a listening partner, it could be a parenting coach, it could be a therapist, whatever you kind of resource you have in your life to just offload. It could be journaling, offload all the stress and frustration and stuff that you feel. If there is someone there listening, make sure you tell them that you don't want advice and you definitely don't want judgment. So if there's someone in your life who you wish you could talk to but will probably judge you, yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't share any of that with them either. So just share it with people that you know won't judge you and that won't give you advice if you don't want it unless you ask for it, right? Those are reasonable expectations and needs to have. Thank you so much for listening. I can't wait to hear about all your playful morning ideas. If you have any, share them in the comments because I'd love to see them. And yeah, let's see. Thank you. Just a reminder, registration's open for the fall Yelling to Connecting group. The welcome call is the first week of September. It's and I'd love to see you there. So check out the information on my website. Thank you so much for listening. And I wanted to share a free gift with you. It's the guided audio pause and regroup. This is also known as the rage break when you are about to lose it or have just lost it with your kiddos and you need a moment to pause and regroup. So you put your earbuds in and I'll walk you through what you can do in that moment to offload that stress and to shift your thoughts and then regroup so you can rejoin your kiddos and your family and hopefully show up more the way that you want to. And a reminder, this content is intended for educational purposes only and should not be used as a replacement for private psychotherapy services. Compassionate Heart Mindful Life does not provide psychotherapy services in any capacity. If you need mental health treatment, please find a qualified professional in your area. And finally, a little bit more about yelling to connecting. If you or someone you know struggles with yelling at your kids, losing it, or just constantly feeling on edge, this course will be a helpful tool. Imagine how different your life would be if you could feel more lighthearted and balanced with your kiddos, if you could trust that you have the strength and emotional capacity to handle your toughest parenting moments. If you could connect more easily with your children and laugh and smile more with your kids and just in general. And know that you have the balance and groundedness that you need to be able to respond rather than react. And finally, stop yelling or yell way less. If this sounds helpful, check out Yelling to Connecting at compassionateheartmindfullife.com. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.